if you've ever had that moment that a relationship that you've been building for years, maybe decades, maybe even you went to like elementary school or middle school together and you've remained friends all along, and then suddenly something happens and you're beginning to ask the question, do I really even want this person, quote, as a friend in my life? Or are they the kind of person that I want near me, near my family, and near my kids? And that's a really tough question, but it's a question that leaders need to ask, not only about their middle school buddies, not only about the friends that they've always hung out with, but it's a question they need to be asking about the people they work with, the business partners that they do business with, the ones that work with them, and, well, the ones that are just around them. And every leader knows that boundaries lead to tough conversations, and also they lead to necessary endings. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and there's a reality that we've all experienced at some point or another, and that is that people who've been our friends for a given period of time, but suddenly they're not worthy of being our friends anymore, or they don't fit into our lifestyle. Usually this happens late in high school, early in college, sometimes a little later on in life, like after a military career, or maybe even in the middle of a military career, when you begin to find your core values and the disciplines in your life that mean the most to you. And as you begin to find them, maybe you decide, well, I don't want to drink anymore. I don't want to smoke anymore. I don't want to be in the club every night. And so there are people in your life that, well, that's what they live for. And at some point, you've got to turn to them and say, because that's so important to you and it's not important to me, or because that's so important to you and it's very important to me that it no longer be a part of my life, I'm going to have to ask you to not be a part of my life. Now, that's a tough relationship to be in. That's a tough space to be in. And that's a tough request. Another time that happens, though, is in these relationships when someone begins to date someone new, or get engaged to someone new, or maybe even plan to marry someone new, and then suddenly all of the values, all the priorities, all the time management, all of the expectations of their life, those things change as well. And when those things change, when those priorities change, when expectations of how I'm going to spend my day change, well, then the people in your life, the people that you prioritize with your financial investments, with your time management investments, with your mental ascensions, the conversations that you have, all those have to change as well. And again, we're back to that same place where those boundaries begin to shift. What's important to you moves a little bit to the right, or a little bit to the left, or a little bit deeper in the center. You find that it's not just about learning something. I want to study this topic really, really deep. And the people who don't care about that topic might be very frustrated with you or annoyed with you that that's something so important to you. In the business world, in leadership, we find often that an organization will see someone rise to the top who's very gifted in a specific vein, maybe sales or marketing or operations. They've had great success in managing their own life in those things, and now they've been promoted to the top level echelon to do the same thing. But the challenge is they're only good in that channel. And maybe they don't have the experience or even the temperament to lead from the higher levels over multiple disciplines. Well, we come back to boundaries again. We've got to find that place where even if they've got the highest level of authority, they've got to realize what their limitations are. And sometimes we as leaders, we think, well, I got the promotion, I'm in the role, it's my job now, so I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make sure that everybody else follows my commands or follows my instructions or follows my decisions. Even if I may not have all the answers, by golly, I'm going to make the decisions. Now, you can see really quickly, if you're a reasonable leader, if you're a wise leader, if you're a leader who says, I want the best for the organization, regardless of what that means for my reputation, then you're going to step aside on those decisions you're not as well informed on. the humility and the ability to step aside and say, I'm going to draw boundaries of my own. I'm going to bring a necessary ending to my oversight of that organization and bring in a committee to do that. I'm going to ask people within that discipline to lead the issues on that and get one of those people to report to me. Because I want to have the oversight of the decisions that are made. I want to make sure that the way that they're practicing these things is being done well, but I don't want that to be done in such a way that it's my lack of understanding, my lack of knowledge, causing decisions to be made that could be detrimental. I want the smartest people in that topic to be covering that topic. See, good leaders know that by building those boundaries, there's going to be a necessary ending. And sometimes those necessary endings are those relationships that you have to shuttle off and say, sorry, I can't spend as much time with you at the club or the golf course because I'm putting priority on my job, my career, my education, or my family. Sorry, I can't hang out with you anymore because the values of your life and the values of my life, they're not the same. Sometimes those necessary endings are simply saying, I'm not going to take on that role anymore. I won't hold myself responsible or accountable for that task because I'm not as competent at it as someone else may be. And maybe it falls under my role of responsibility to see to it that it's done, but I don't have to do it because there's somebody else who's better at it. Sometimes these necessary endings only come by tough conversations. Good leaders know that tough conversations are inevitable. There's going to be somebody in your life that you value as a friend, that you treasure closely, that has meant the world to you, and you've meant the world to them for a long time, and yet, even still, you've got to be willing to say, we need to change the nature of our relationship. Certain things we're not going to be able to talk about anymore. Certain places we won't go together anymore. Certain things we don't understand or see eye to eye on are just going to have to be off the table, or we're going to have to bring this relationship to an end. In the military, there's a phrase called anti-fraternization. It's a policy. And really, anti-fraternization says if you're someone who has a certain level of security clearance or understanding or knowledge or rank, hanging out with people who don't have that same level of knowledge, understanding, experience, or rank is a detriment to the organization because you may, in friendship, share information that at this level is guarded and protected with high esteem, and at this level, they don't know anything about it, they don't care, and they don't realize how detrimental it would be to let it slip to the general public. And so the anti-fraternization policies are basically a protection of the organization, saying, we know there are certain people you can't talk to everything about. Leaders understand that. Leaders understand that within an organization of any size. An example, a really gross example, would be if you were a married couple and you had kids that were 7, 8, 9 years old, obviously linguistically they can understand when you talk about the bills. They can understand when you say, sorry, no new bicycles for Christmas this year because we've got to get caught up on that tax bill. Now, mom and dad understand that at a totally different level. Trying to explain that to your 7-year-old that there's not going to be anything under their Christmas tree, that's a whole different set of problems. And it's similar to that anti-fraternization policy, what you would discuss at this level, you won't discuss at this level. That seems really like a duh kind of a concept, right? But leaders often struggle with realizing that, well, so-and-so is my best friend. So-and-so and I've known each other for years. Just because I'm in the C-suite and they work in the mailroom, it doesn't mean we can't still have the same conversation. Well, no, actually it does mean that you can't have the same conversations. And sometimes when those conversations mean, I can't tell you what I'm thinking. I can't tell you what we met about. I can't tell you what's going on at the top. Not because I don't like you, not because you're not my friend, but this tough conversation is you're not in a place where you need to know that information or that it could be beneficial to you, or that information could be detrimental to the company if I share it, so I can't tell you. Boundaries. Leaders understand that boundaries lead to tough conversations, and they lead to necessary endings. Sometimes that necessary ending is, I don't need you in my life 5 days a week, maybe just 2. I'll see you at the gym, I'll see you at the clubhouse, I'll see you on the course, but we're not going to be hanging out together 24/7 anymore. Sometimes those necessary endings look like a pink slip, a new opportunity to go find another job, start another career, move on with your life, because this is not the place for you anymore. Good leaders understand that. And sure, they deal with a little bit of humanity in that as well. The ability to say, this doesn't mean that I don't care about you, doesn't mean I don't like you anymore. It just means this part of our journey has come to an end. Some people are in your life for a reason, and some for a season. Good leaders need to understand that. Boundaries, they will lead to tough conversations and necessary endings. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.